They told my brother to make me pay for everything. But I found the truth they wanted to hide. I'm Sydney. And what happened at my sister's wedding rehearsal dinner shattered me in a way I didn't think possible. I had been the one to book the venue, the one who wrote the check for the floral arrangements, the DJ, the table settings, and even the customized cupcakes with the couple's initials. I didn't just contribute, I funded nearly everything. And yet, when I arrived that night dressed in a soft blue dress I picked out months ago, my name wasn't even on the guest list. My mother's voice sliced through the air before I even stepped past the entrance. "What are you doing here?" she snapped, crossing her arms like I was a stranger off the street. I blinked, confused. I came for the rehearsal, I helped. "You didn't RSVP," my sister Brooklyn interrupted, her eyes rolling like I was some distant cousin trying to crash the party. This is my RSVP, I said softly, trying to hide the shake in my voice. I helped plan this. Brooklyn scoffed loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. "We didn't think you'd actually show up. You're always so busy." The guests around us went quiet. A few looked away. One woman awkwardly cleared her throat and stepped back. I felt heat rise in my face, humiliation burning brighter than any spotlight in that hall. I wanted to disappear, to dissolve into the floor, but I stood frozen. My mother leaned in, lips tight. "Maybe it's best if you just leave. This night is about Brooklyn. Let her have her moment." My moment I had given her, every moment. Every sacrifice, every dollar, every ounce of emotional bandwidth I had left after years of putting her first. And now I wasn't even welcome. I looked at the long white table with golden place cards. My name wasn't there. I checked twice. I turned and walked back into the parking lot, my heels tapping against concrete like exclamation points on the word unwanted. As I sat behind the wheel of my car, gripping the steering wheel like it could hold me together, the tears finally came. Not because they hurt me tonight, but because deep down I realized they'd been doing this for years. Tonight was just the first time it was public. If you've ever stood in a room full of people you thought loved you, only to realize you were the only one not invited, then you know what that moment feels like. And if you've been through that, maybe leave a like, just so I know I'm not the only one sitting in a car, wondering when it all stopped feeling like family. Because what came next? They had no idea who they had just pushed out, and they weren't ready for what I was about to do. They say families are built on love. Mine was built on expectation, and I was the scaffolding holding it all together. From the moment Brooklyn was born, the house shifted. I was 6 when she arrived. At first, I was excited I'd be a big sister, someone to protect her, play with her, teach her things. But I quickly learned that my role wasn't to be her sibling, it was to be her shadow. My bedroom became hers by the time she turned 5. My posters were taken down, my books boxed up, and I was moved into the laundry room with a mattress on the floor. "Brooklyn needs her space," Mom said, like I didn't matter. By high school, I was working part-time at a local diner after classes, while Brooklyn got cheerleading lessons, weekend trips, and every iPhone the moment it dropped. I didn't mind at first. I told myself it was temporary, that it would even out eventually. That one day my parents would look at me the same way they looked at her, with pride. But that day never came. When I got accepted into college full scholarship, I was over the moon. I remember printing out the letter and handing it to my dad. He barely looked at it before asking, "Will you be able to come home weekends? Your sister needs rides to her dance classes." I didn't argue. I deferred a year to help out. That 1 year turned into forever. Brooklyn's ambitions became the family project. She wanted to open a boutique when she turned 19. My parents remortgaged part of the house to help fund it. I worked doubles to help cover the monthly payments. The boutique failed in under 6 months. They never blamed her. They blamed the market, the landlord, the weather. When I raised concerns, I was met with guilt. "She's just figuring it out. Don't you remember being young?" Mom would say, as if I had ever been allowed to be. But I did remember. I remembered skipping prom because Brooklyn had strep throat and I had to stay home to watch her. I remembered selling my car to help pay for her tuition college she dropped out of in her 2nd semester. I remembered nights I stayed awake worrying about money while she posted photos from weekend getaways. Somewhere along the line, I stopped being the daughter. I became the backup plan, the built-in emergency fund, the invisible support system no one thanked but everyone depended on. I told myself love looked like sacrifice. That being the dependable one meant something. But I didn't realize that in their eyes I was never the daughter who gave up everything. I was the one who owed it all to them in the first place. And even now, years later, I still ask myself, how did they manage to convince me that being used was the same as being loved? If you've ever been made to feel like your worth was tied to what you could provide, not who you are, share your story below. Sometimes knowing you're not alone is the first step out. Because what I didn't know then was, this pattern wasn't done repeating. Not even close. The debt came in quietly like everything else they never warned me about. One phone call on a rainy Wednesday afternoon, a voicemail from a collections agency. Hi, this message is for Sydney Callahan. We're following up on the missed payment for the business loan taken out under your name. Please call us back immediately. At first, I thought it was a scam. I never took out a business loan. I didn't even have a business. I was working 60-hour weeks in accounting, barely keeping up with my rent and groceries. I called back. They confirmed my social security number, my address. The loan application had my signature on it, except I never signed anything. I knew instantly who had. I drove straight to my parents' house, heart-hammering, hands shaking. Brooklyn was in the kitchen with Mom sipping iced coffee like it was any other day. I didn't waste time. What did you do? I demanded, slamming the letter on the counter. Brooklyn blinked at me, confused. Mom frowned. Don't come in here with that tone. I got a call about a $92,000 business loan in my name. Brooklyn, did you forge my signature? Brooklyn's face flushed. I didn't think it would go through. I just needed a boost to get my boutique off the ground again. I stared at her. You forged my identity. That's fraud. That's prison. Mom stepped between us. Stop being dramatic. She's your sister. Exactly, I snapped. And I'm not her insurance policy. Dad walked in and muttered, it's just money. You make good money now. Why are you so upset? I felt the air leave my lungs. It was like watching your whole life through a funhouse mirror, everything distorted upside down. I wasn't their daughter. I was their bank account, their safety net. The one they'd gladly let crash as long as Brooklyn kept floating. I spent the next 3 months cleaning up their mess. Lawyers, credit bureaus, fraud affidavits. It was hell. And what did I get in return? Silence. No apology, not even acknowledgement. Just one text from Mom weeks later. Hope you're not mad anymore. Brooklyn is under a lot of stress. If you've ever been betrayed by the very people you protected, drop a comment. Because some scars aren't visible. Some are inked on paper with your name at the bottom and consequences that weren't yours to carry. And the worst part, this wasn't the end of it. It was just the beginning. The final straw wasn't loud. It didn't come with shouting or slammed doors. It came quietly in the form of a single sentence I muttered on a cold January morning. I'm not paying for anything else. I didn't expect a celebration. I didn't even expect gratitude. But I hoped naively that maybe they'd respect the boundary. Instead, they treated it like betrayal. Brooklyn stopped replying to my texts. She blocked me on Instagram and told mutual friends I had changed, that I thought I was better than everyone else now that I had a stable job and a condo with a mortgage I paid for myself. Mom called once. Just once. Her voice wasn't angry. It was worse, disappointed. You've always been the responsible one, Sydney. Why would you stop now just when she needs you most? Because I was tired. Tired of being the one who always showed up while no one showed up for me. When Brooklyn's wedding planning began, I stayed distant. I told myself it was her moment, her life. I didn't want to be the villain in another one of their stories. But then Mom called me one afternoon. She's having trouble booking the venue. They want a deposit up front. Could you... No, I cut in firm for the first time in a long time. I can't. A pause. Won't I correct it? I won't. That word hit like thunder. Mom hung up. No goodbyes. A week later, I saw the family group chat explode with everyone but me. Photos of dress fittings, cake tastings, rehearsal dinner menus. My name wasn't mentioned once. Until Brooklyn posted a story with her bridesmaids. The caption, "Chosen family always shows up." That one stung. But nothing hurt more than what came next. Dad's 60th birthday dinner, a big family event. I wasn't invited. I showed up anyway, thinking maybe they forgot to add me to the message. I wore a nice coat, brought a bottle of his favorite whiskey. When I stepped into the restaurant, everyone went silent. Brooklyn stared at me like I was an uninvited guest at her engagement. Mom stood up slowly and said, "This is a family dinner." "I am family," I said. "Not tonight," Dad muttered without meeting my eyes. It was a clean cut, a cold one, and I walked out that door with the sharpest kind of clarity. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was a tool they had worn down to the handle, and they didn't like that I'd stopped being useful. Have you ever been erased by the people who raised you just because you finally said no? If that's ever been you, I see you. Because that was the night I realized if they could cut me out, I could do the same. I didn't cry the night they turned me away from the restaurant. I drove home in silence, sat in my dark kitchen, and made a list. It wasn't a list of revenge, it was a list of freedom. I listed everything my name was tied to. The joint savings account I had opened years ago when Dad said we should build family equity. The emergency fund Mom insisted I help contribute to just in case Brooklyn needed surgery again. The car Brooklyn drove registered under my name. The credit card Mom used for gas, which had racked up over $12,000 in beauty salon charges. I logged into every account, every one of them. By midnight, I'd transferred the entire savings, my contributions, into my own personal account. I closed the credit card. I revoked access to the joint emergency fund. I left a note in the account description, "You chose to erase me. This is me agreeing." I changed my number the next day, blocked them all. And for a while, it was peaceful, hauntingly peaceful. But 3 weeks later, a letter arrived, from a lawyer. I hadn't even opened it when Brooklyn called from an unknown number. "You think you're smart?" she hissed. "You think you can just pull out like that and not face consequences? That savings account was supposed to be for the boutique's second launch." I almost laughed. It was my money. "You think you're too good for us now. You think that condo makes you someone." "No," I said, "but walking away from you does." She hung up. I opened the letter. It was a notice my parents were suing me. For misappropriation of joint assets, for mental anguish, for abandonment of family duty. That last one made me laugh out loud. I didn't abandon them. I finally stopped letting them abandon me. But that's when I found it. Buried in old tax records while I gathered everything for my defense, I noticed something odd. My name was listed as co-signer on a business loan I never approved. Not the same one Brooklyn forged. A second one. Signed 2 years ago, $45,000. But this time it wasn't Brooklyn. It was Dad. He'd used my name and my credit to open a line of funding for his retirement startup. One that never even launched. All the money was gone. They hadn't just used me. They had been planning to keep doing it. For years. And if I hadn't walked away, I never would have known. If you're watching this and thinking, that could be me, stop. You don't need permission to choose yourself. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is leave. And if you've ever had to make that choice quietly, painfully, hit that like button and stay with me, because what I did next changed everything. I didn't back down. I hired a lawyer the next day, not just any lawyer, Ava Duran. She was known in Boston for being ruthless in court and having zero patience for family manipulation cases. When I walked into her office with the file folder stuffed with documents, she didn't blink. "You have everything you need," she said, after flipping through the forged signatures, tax filings, and fraudulent credit lines. "They're not just wrong. What they did is criminal." Still, it felt like betrayal to press charges against the people who once taught me to ride a bike. But then I remembered Dad's voice, "Not tonight," and Mom's silence, and Brooklyn's smug laugh through the phone. So I filed. The countersuit was for identity theft, fraud, and emotional damages. It shocked them. For once, I wasn't the one playing defense. Court was set. I'll never forget the moment I walked into the courthouse. Brooklyn was in a cream blazer like it was some brunch photo shoot. Dad avoided my eyes. Mom looked like she was going to cry, but didn't. They were representing themselves. Probably thought they could charm the judge. Thought they'd guilt me into dropping everything. But guilt was the currency they'd already overdrawn. My lawyer laid it all out calmly, methodically. Loan records, text messages, emails, the copy of my signature compared to the forged ones. Even a voice recording of Dad admitting on the phone to opening the second loan to help the family. They had nothing until the judge asked one question. "Did the defendant ever give you written consent to use her identity or credit for these loans?" Silence. Brooklyn finally snapped. "She's our sister, our daughter. That should be enough." The judge leaned forward. "Family is not a legal contract." That line stuck with me. Because in their world, I had always been the fallback, the default, the one who didn't say no. And now I was dismantling that system one truth at a time. As we left the courtroom, someone grabbed my arm gently. It was Aunt Claire, Dad's estranged sister. I hadn't seen her in years. "I came to support you," she said, eyes shining. "I've been through it too. Your dad did the same to our parents." I froze. "What?" She nodded. "He drained their retirement account when they were sick. I tried to fight it back then, but no one believed me. That was the moment I understood this wasn't new. I was just the first to fight back and win. Sometimes breaking a cycle means standing alone in a courtroom with nothing but a folder of truth and a backbone made of scars. And if you've ever had to carry your whole family's weight just to survive, Leave a comment. You're not alone. 'Cause what came after the trial? It wasn't justice. It was liberation. The judge's ruling came in on a rainy Tuesday morning. The courtroom was nearly silent, except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional shuffle of papers. I sat with my lawyer clutching the armrest as the judge began. The court finds in favor of the defendant, Sydney Callahan. Damages awarded $180,000. Additionally, the court refers the matter of forged documents to the district attorney's office for potential criminal prosecution. It was done. Brooklyn gasped. Mom covered her mouth. Dad just shook his head like he couldn't believe it. I walked out of the courtroom not victorious, but free. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying their secrets on my back like bricks. But that freedom came with a price. By that evening, Brooklyn had taken to social media. She sued her own parents, she wrote in all caps. All over some money she was never even struggling with. She's cold, heartless, a corporate robot. Photos from high school, old family holiday snapshots, twisted captions, videos edited to show me laughing while Mom looked sad. Comments rolled in like waves of poison. You're disgusting. No one sues their own family. She must be lying. My inbox was flooded with hate, and then one message changed everything. Hi, Sydney. I'm Marla Jansen. I host a national talk show that focuses on stories of financial abuse, manipulation, and emotional healing. I saw what your sister posted. I see through it. Would you like to share your side on your terms? I stared at the screen. Was this real? I'd spent years being erased, then years rebuilding in silence. Now someone was offering me a platform not just to defend myself, but to speak for others like me. I said yes. The interview aired 2 weeks later. I told the whole story start to finish. Calmly, clearly, no screaming, no dramatics, just truth. We aired the loan documents, the texts, the court ruling. But more importantly, we talked about what it feels like when your family doesn't see you as a person, only as a wallet. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of emails, comments, messages. You told my story? I thought I was the only one. You gave me the courage to say no. One message in particular stuck with me. My daughter watched your interview. She'd been quietly supporting us while we took advantage of her kindness. After hearing you, I apologized to her for the first time. Thank you. And in that moment, I realized what they tried to destroy became my power. If you've ever felt like the villain just for choosing yourself, hit that subscribe button and share your truth. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is finally be heard. The days after the interview aired were a whirlwind. I wasn't just Sydney Callahan, accountant, anymore. I was suddenly that woman who sued her family and spoke up on national TV. My inbox turned into a flood of messages from strangers, some thanking me, some attacking me, others pouring out stories that mirrored mine like echoes from a life I could have lived. But it didn't take long for the backlash from home to hit harder. Brooklyn went live on Instagram in tears. She's trying to ruin us. She made Mom cry for 2 days straight. We're family and family works things out privately, not like this. Her followers sent more hate my way. Even old neighbors chimed in, people who barely knew me growing up. But I didn't respond. For once, I let silence protect me. Instead, I poured that energy into rebuilding, reclaiming the parts of me I'd shelved for their comfort. I got a therapist. I took time off work. I started writing my truth, my lessons, my healing. And then out of nowhere, Mom showed up. I was walking out of my apartment building with groceries when she pulled up and stepped out of her car like no time had passed. She looked older, smaller. Sydney, she said softly, can we talk? I hesitated. Everything inside me screamed to walk away. But curiosity won. We sat on a bench nearby, the air thick with things unsaid. I didn't know it got that bad, she began. I thought you'd bounce back. You always do. I guess. I forgot you were human too. That hurt more than I expected. She wasn't there to deny anymore. She was there because she'd seen the world take my side, and now her shame finally outweighed her pride. I'm not here to excuse what we did, she said. I miss my daughter. I stayed quiet. Because forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a muscle, and mine was still bruised. I know it'll take time, she added, but I want to start. There it was, the olive branch. Bent late and half-burned, but real. I looked at her. You don't get to miss me now, I said. You had me. For years. And when I needed protection, you gave excuses. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't stop. You want a relationship? Then it starts with responsibility. With repair. And it happens on my terms. If you've ever had to set boundaries with someone you still love, tell me how you did it in the comments. Because the truth is, healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing yourself anyway. And I was finally ready to choose me every single time. 6 months later, my life looked completely different. I had signed a book deal. It started as a blog, just reflections really. Short essays on healing boundaries, financial betrayal, and the cost of silence. But it took off. Agents reached out. Publishers called. And eventually, I had a contract in hand, an advance in the bank, and a manuscript deadline that made my heart race with both fear and excitement. The title, The Cost of Being the Strong One. It was honest, raw. I didn't name names, I didn't have to. The truth didn't need revenge, it just needed space to breathe. But Brooklyn didn't see it that way. 2 weeks before the book's release, I got served. A lawsuit. Defamation. Emotional distress. Loss of business. Brooklyn was suing me for $750,000. The same sister who'd taken out a fraudulent loan in my name. The same sister who blasted me online. Now claimed I had destroyed her life with unfounded, exaggerated stories that damaged her reputation and caused her to lose brand partnerships. I sat with the letter in my hands, stunned. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to laugh. But mostly I felt tired. Tired of being dragged back into battles I never started fighting for dignity I shouldn't have had to earn. I called my publisher, my legal team, my therapist, and then I made a decision. I held a press conference, not because I wanted more attention, but because I refused to play defense in silence again. Standing behind a podium, I said, "This book is not about revenge, it's about survival. I wrote it for every person who's been told to keep quiet for the sake of family. I stand by every word." And then I added, because it needed to be said, you can't sue someone for telling the truth just because it makes you uncomfortable. The media took hold. Interviews followed. So did viral headlines. Author accused of exposing her sister's fraud in bestseller. But here's the twist. A journalist with a background in business law decided to investigate the claims in Brooklyn's lawsuit and unearthed something Brooklyn had never expected. Her boutique's investors. One of them was using laundered money, and Brooklyn was being investigated quietly by the IRS. Her entire brand unraveled in weeks. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. Because this wasn't justice, it was consequence. If you've ever been blamed for someone else's collapse, drop a comment. Because standing in your truth doesn't make you the villain. It makes you free. And I wasn't going to dim my light just because someone else couldn't stand the reflection. It was a quiet Thursday evening when my phone rang. Unknown number, Georgia area code. I hesitated before answering. Something in my gut twisted. "Hello?" A pause. Then, "Sydney, it's me, Dad." His voice stopped me cold. I hadn't spoken to him in over a year, not since the courtroom, not since he stood behind Brooklyn with arms folded, eyes hard as stone. I didn't say a word, just listened. I watched your interview. And I read part of your book," he continued, his voice low, uncertain. "It's not how I remembered it, but maybe I didn't want to remember." I sat on the edge of my bed, heart pounding. He sounded older, not just in years, but in defeat. "I'm not calling to argue," he said. "I just wanted you to know I'm sorry." My eyes burned. He'd never said that before. Not when I was 12 and cried because Brooklyn got a birthday party and I didn't. Not when I begged him to believe I didn't lie about the loan. Not when he watched me walk out of court with tears in my eyes. And now here he was, apologizing, finally. "I should have protected you," he said. "I failed. I let your sister turn everything upside down, and I didn't stop it. I didn't listen." I closed my eyes. I wanted to scream. I wanted to hang up. But more than anything, I wanted to believe he meant it. "I don't expect forgiveness," he added. "But if there's a chance we can talk, maybe coffee sometime, just let me know. That's all." Silence. Then the call ended. And I just sat there. What do you do when the person who hurt you most finally says sorry? The next morning I wrote about it. Not in the book, not in a blog, just in a letter to myself. You don't owe anyone a reconciliation that costs you your peace. Apologies are a beginning, not a conclusion. It's okay to wait. It's okay to say not yet. It's okay to never say yes at all. That entry went viral when I later posted it with no names, no backstory, just truth. Thousands of comments poured in. If you've ever gotten the apology too late hit, like, if you forgave someone but kept your distance, share this. If you're still waiting on that apology, this is your reminder that you deserve better. And if this resonates with you, if you've ever stood at the crossroads of hurt and healing, unsure which way to go, stay with me. Because sometimes just hearing someone else survived it helps you believe you can too. So hit that like button, leave your story in the comments, and subscribe for more real, raw truths. You never know who you'll help just by being here. The invitation came in a sleek envelope with gold trim and embossed lettering. Keynote speaker invitation, the National Summit on Financial Trauma and Emotional Recovery. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a scam even, but the details were real. The host was a nationally recognized nonprofit. The venue was the Georgia World Congress Center. The attendees would include financial advisors, trauma therapists, survivors, and even state representatives. And they wanted me. Me. The girl who once sat alone in her apartment trying to figure out how to pay off a loan she never took. The woman who spent years being gaslit by her own family. Now I was being asked to stand on a stage and speak not just about money, but about truth. I said yes. The night before the conference, I sat in my hotel room rehearsing. "Your story matters," I whispered into the mirror, because when you speak, someone else finds the courage to stop whispering theirs. The next morning, I stepped onto the stage wearing a deep navy suit heels that made my knees ache, and a calm I hadn't felt in years. I took a deep breath and began. My name is Sydney Callahan. I was the financial scapegoat in a family that praised appearances, but hid debt behind loyalty. I was taught that love meant silence, that sacrifice made me worthy, that money should never be more important than blood. But what no one told me was that silence has interest. It compounds. Until one day you can't afford yourself anymore. You could hear a pin drop. I told them about the loan, the betrayal, the lawsuit, the apology. The nights I sobbed into pillows, the days I screamed into steering wheels, the years I thought it was just me that I was selfish, dramatic, ungrateful. And I told them what changed. You don't break the cycle by suffering quietly. You break it by standing in your truth, even if your voice trembles. Applause broke out slow at first, then rising into a wave that caught me by surprise. It felt like oxygen after years underwater. After the talk, dozens of people lined up to speak to me. A woman who'd paid her brother's rent for 10 years and never once received a thank you. A man who'd mortgaged his house to keep his parents afloat, only to be cut off when he refused again. A college student whose sister used her name to lease a car, totaled it, and blamed her for the debt. Their stories poured out. Some whispered, some shouted, all of them valid. And for once, none of us felt alone. Before leaving the event, I checked my phone and saw a text from Mom. Just 2 words. "You spoke." No apology, no warmth, just a simple stunned observation. And that's when I realized she never expected I'd have a voice louder than her silence. And if you've ever reclaimed your voice after years of being dismissed, I see you. I hear you. And you're not wrong for choosing peace over pleasing. Leave a comment below if you've ever found your voice in a room that once tried to mute you. And if you're still searching for that voice, subscribe. Because I promise you there's a way forward. And we'll walk it together. I was standing in line at the grocery store, half distracted, scrolling through messages when the screen lit up. Brooklyn. Her name still triggered something visceral in me, a mixture of dread, confusion, and grief that no amount of time seemed to wash clean. I hadn't spoken to her in nearly 2 years. I let the call ring out. Seconds later, a voicemail appeared. Curiosity got the best of me. "Hey, Sydney, I saw your talk. You were incredible. I mean that. And I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I'm working on something. A startup. It's financial literacy for young adults. And I think we could really make an impact together. You know this space better than anyone. Please, think about it." I froze in the middle of the checkout line, bananas in one hand, the phone in the other, heart pounding like a drum. Brooklyn, asking me to partner, after everything. I didn't sleep that night. The audacity, the irony, the nerve of her acting like she hadn't once forged my name onto a loan application, then turned the entire family against me. But beneath the rage, there was something else clawing at my chest. Sadness. This wasn't just my sister. This was the girl who braided my hair before dances. The girl who snuck me pieces of cake at midnight. The one who used to whisper, "We're each other's ride or die, remember." I sat down at my desk, stared at a blank page, and tried to write out all the things I wanted to say. But nothing came out clean. So I did what I'd learned to do. I turned to my audience. I posted a video titled, "What do you do when the person who hurt you asks to work with you?" I told the story truthfully, carefully leaving out names. Then I asked, is forgiveness the same as trust? Can you rebuild with someone who once tore you down? Or do some bridges stay burned even after the fire's out? The comment section exploded. Some urged me to say yes, for healing, for growth, for legacy. Others warned me a snake can smile too. Closure isn't collaboration. Don't let guilt rent space in your peace. One comment hit me hardest. Forgiveness is a gift, access is a privilege. That line stayed with me all night. The next day, I texted Brooklyn. Thank you for reaching out. I'm truly glad you're building something meaningful. But I need to keep this chapter for myself. I hope you understand. She replied an hour later. I do, and I'm sorry, Sydney, for real this time. I didn't respond, but I did exhale. Because sometimes the most powerful collaboration you can make is with yourself. And if you've ever chosen not to reopen a door no matter how nicely someone knocked, you're not heartless. You're healing. Leave a comment if you've ever had to say no to someone you still loved. And don't forget to subscribe because your journey isn't selfish. It's sacred, and you deserve to write it your way. I wasn't ready for the headline. Influencer profits off family drama sister speaks out. It was plastered across a mid-tier gossip blog with a grainy photo of me mid-speech, mouth open expression intense. The article had quotes out of context, chopped into inflammatory fragments. Then came the knife. Sydney Callahan has built a brand on victimhood, but her family says things aren't so black and white. She's exaggerating, twisting facts. We all make mistakes, but she turned ours into her career, said a relative who asked to remain anonymous. I stared at the screen, my chest hollowing. The comments were worse. Another clout chaser milking family skeletons. Bet the loan was fake. She should be sued for defamation. I wanted to scream. Instead, I closed the laptop and walked to the mirror. And just like that, my reflection didn't feel real. Everything I'd fought to rebuild my name, my truth, my peace now felt like it was up for debate. For profit. By people who hadn't lived a day in my skin. I called my lawyer. She advised staying quiet, letting it pass. The internet moves fast, she said. Don't feed the flames. But silence was how it all began. And silence was what they expected. So I wrote something, not a rebuttal, a statement. I sat at my camera raw, no makeup, no music, just me. They say I turned pain into profit, but I turned survival into story. And no one gets to rewrite what I survived. Not my family. Not a stranger behind a keyboard. Not a blog looking for clicks. If my story makes you uncomfortable, maybe ask why silence was more comfortable to begin with. The video went viral in under 24 hours. People flooded in not just to defend me, but to defend themselves. Survivors, whistleblowers, black sheep who were tired of being gaslit by the people who hurt them the most. One comment stuck with me. When a woman tells the truth, they call her angry. When she tells it well, they call her dangerous. And maybe I was both. But I was also free, because I wasn't telling these stories for revenge. I was telling them for the ones who still sat in silence, wondering if what happened to them counted. If that's ever been you, if you've ever felt crazy for remembering pain, no one else would validate I see you, I believe you, and I promise you your truth isn't too much. It's just been ignored too long. If you've ever been accused of profiting from your truth just for daring to speak it, leave a comment. Let's stand louder together. And if this hit home, don't forget to subscribe. The more we speak, the less power shame holds. Let's rewrite what survival sounds like. 3 months later, my inbox pinged with a subject line I almost didn't open. Board Invitation National Financial Justice Initiative. I blinked, reread. They wanted me as a senior advisor. It didn't feel real. This was the organization, the one I'd followed for years, the one that changed laws, built programs, helped thousands recover from financial abuse, manipulation, and control. And now, they were asking me to help lead the conversation. Not as a case study, but as a voice. I stared at the screen, heart thudding like I was 17 again, staring down a locked bedroom door, wondering how I'd ever make it out. I accepted. They flew me out for an orientation summit in Washington, D.C., 3 days of panel sessions, workshops, and roundtables. On the last day, they asked me to join a private advisory session with a new program partner. I walked into the room and stopped cold. At the table sat my father. Same suit and tie posture, same calculating eyes, but now grayer, slower. His jaw clenched the moment he saw me. Mine too. No one else in the room knew. Not the director, not the admin beside him. They just introduced him as James Callahan, retired financial officer turned policy consultant. I sat down. My hands trembled under the table. The director began, "We're building a case study curriculum based on real survivor stories, especially ones involving family misuse. Sydney, I know your background will offer tremendous insight." My father didn't flinch. He spoke like nothing happened. Polished, diplomatic, quoting stats about generational wealth patterns and responsibility education. I couldn't breathe. Finally, the room turned to me. Sydney, your thoughts. I looked at him, straight in the eyes. We don't just need statistics. We need people to stop calling it a misunderstanding. When your name is stolen, your choices erased, your future mortgaged without consent. Sometimes the people closest to you hold the pen that writes your debt, and the world still calls them loving. The room went silent. My father's face twitched, but he said nothing. And in that moment I realized I didn't need his apology anymore. His presence didn't shake me. His silence no longer defined me. I was there because I had turned survival into systems. I wasn't there to be approved. I was there to rewrite the rules. After the meeting, he approached me in the hallway. He opened his mouth, then paused. You did well. You always were sharp. I looked at him, this man who once told me you'll come crawling back when life humbles you. Life did humble me. That's why I never came back. Then I walked away. And if you've ever had to face the person who broke you and still chose to stand taller than they ever expected, you're not just healing. You're leading. If that moment hit you, drop a comment. And if you believe in rewriting old power with new purpose, hit subscribe. We're not just surviving, we're shaping the future. The house was still there. Same cracked driveway, same squeaky gate, the same rusted mailbox with Callahan faded on its side like the echo of a name I no longer wore. I hadn't been back in almost a decade, but something in me after everything needed closure. Not revenge, not confrontation, just an ending. I stood outside for a long time, breathing, remembering. I could still see it all like a ghost playing out behind the windows. My teenage self quietly packing boxes while Mom yelled in the background. Dad counting the cost of everything, but never the cost of me. The kitchen where I was told to shut up and be grateful. The staircase I sat on the night they froze my future. I rang the doorbell. No one answered. That was okay. I hadn't come to see them. I walked around the back. The garden was overgrown. The swing set rusted. But the oak tree was still standing tall, solid, defiant. I sat beneath it. The same place I used to write in secret journal under the moonlight and dream about a life where I wasn't someone's obligation. Where I could just be me. From my coat pocket I pulled out a small envelope. Inside was the last photo I had of myself at 16, pre-move-in day, before I knew what betrayal tasted like. I buried it under the oak, not out of spite, but as a marker. A grave for the girl who thought love meant debt. A goodbye. When I stood, the wind shifted, and I swear it felt like that younger me was letting go too. We're done surviving, I whispered. We're choosing. And in that moment, I chose peace. Not forgiveness for their sake, but freedom for mine. Not silence, but sovereignty. Not legacy by blood, but legacy by choice. I walked away from that house not just as the girl they tried to control, but as the woman who reclaimed the pen. The story was mine now. And to anyone listening who's still sitting on the porch of someone else's version of your worth, hear me. You do not owe your peace to the people who broke it. You don't have to wait for permission to let go. If this journey felt like yours, even in a small way, don't keep it inside. Leave a comment. Let someone know they're not alone. And if you're ready to start your chapter, your real one, subscribe to this channel. Let's stop inheriting silence. Let's start choosing truth. Together. Some stories don't end with grand applause. Some end with the soft click of a door closing finally from your side. After I left the house, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just drove. Windows down, music low, that strange feeling of lightness in my chest like something heavy had finally unhooked from my ribs. It wasn't the kind of victory people write headlines about. No courtroom drama, no shocking twist. Just a quiet woman choosing not to carry what was never hers to hold. In the months that followed, I didn't rush to tell everyone. I kept it sacred. I spent more time with the people I chose, friends who didn't measure love in invoices, colleagues who asked how I was and waited for the answer. I grew into myself again. Not the version shaped by guilt or survival, but the version built from truth. I stopped trying to prove anything to the ones who would never see me. Instead, I started building places where others could be seen. That became my mission. And now as I sit recording this final piece for you, maybe from a small coffee shop in Portland, maybe from my living room couch, it's not about them anymore. It's about you. About anyone who's ever been told their story doesn't matter unless it benefits someone else. It does. It matters because you matter. So if you're standing at the edge of your own goodbye, know this. Peace isn't earned through endurance. It's chosen moment by moment, breath by breath. And the moment you choose it, you're already free. Thank you for staying with me until the end. I hope this was more than a story. I hope it was a mirror. And if it was, welcome home.